Hey mamas, my name is Lauren Eckstrom, mindfulness meditation teacher and the co-founder of Inner Dimension TV. And I'm here with Motherhood Maternity for our second week in this self-care series. So if you joined us last week, welcome back. It's so great to practice with you again. And if you're new to the practice this week, welcome. Can't wait to share it with you. So we ended on Thursday with one of the heart-centered practices, and we shared this reminder that if we're not seeing mindfulness as heartfulness, inherently something is missing. So always to the practice, and this is essential to self-care, on some level we're bringing friendliness, compassion, and kindness to every moment that we meet in our practice. And this is really powerful because we want to be able to meet not just the moments in our mindfulness meditation practice with kindness, but we're practicing so that we can meet the moments off our cushion and in our lives that come up that are inevitably challenging in this role as mother or soon to be mother with that same inner friendliness. So we're going to continue some of that today with another one of the heart-centric practices. But I want to share a little bit of the neuroscience that can be really supportive to understanding why this is so powerful. So before we begin, I'll talk a little bit and share some framing and some reference. And anything I share, it's take it or leave it. You know, if it works for you and it applies to your life and to your practice, great, integrate it. And if for some reason it doesn't, totally fine, just leave it to the side. This is your practice and anything I say is really just a suggestion. So I think it's been powerful for me to understand some of the inner workings of this practice and how it functions for us and supports us at the level of the brain. And therefore, that helps us to really understand how it can support our children. So this comes from Dr. Dan Siegel, and he does this little hand gesture to show the physiology of the brain. So if you hold your hand up, and I'll just do it, you don't need to, and you fold your thumb over the palm of your hand, and then you fold your four fingers over your thumb, what we really have is the brain and then the spinal cord and the brain stem. And the thumb represents the part of the brain that is the center of the fight, flight, freeze response. And the practice that we're doing today is to meet this place with kindness and with friendliness. Now, over time and over evolution, these higher centers of the brain have evolved and folded kind of over that fight, flight, freeze response. And this higher center of the brain is associated with emotional regulation. So when we're emotionally regulated, when we're down regulated, the highest center of the brain is communicating with the place that's associated with our fight, flight, freeze response, and they stay connected, and that information and that communication goes through our whole nervous system. And that's when we're down regulated. So we're centered, we're steady. It doesn't mean that we're not challenged, but it does mean that our higher resources of understanding emotion, and I think for us as moms and as parents, what's really important, that higher resource of being able to really listen and hear, that's all connected. But if we get into that state of fight, flight, or freeze and we get triggered, we get reactive, we get upset, we literally pop our lid. And when we pop our lid, those higher centers of the brain are no longer connected and we're no longer down regulated. And that's when things can kind of go a little bit haywire. We get reactive, we might react from a place of emotion, we get frustrated, we yell, we scream, we shut down, whatever it might be. So the more that we practice, the more that we're able to down-regulate ourselves. And today's practice is really geared to help us be able to do that in a flash, in a moment, to meet those challenging moments and to have a tool in our toolbox to turn to. So one of the stories that I love that really helps to bring this practice to life starts with the Buddha. And the Buddha had an attendant named Ananda. And one day while the Buddha was in this beautiful area, Ananda, his attendant, noticed that Mara was in the garden. And Mara was the figure that represented everything having to do with jealousy and greed, hatred, frustration, and anger. And the Buddha's attendant went running to the Buddha and said, oh no, Mara is here. Should I make him go away? What should I do? And the Buddha said, no, Ananda, please welcome Mara in for tea. And the Buddha sat down with Mara and they had tea together. And this is just a metaphor. What it means is that throughout the course of our lifetime, no matter how evolved we are, no matter how much we practice, we're always going to have to be meeting those parts of ourselves that are challenging. We're going to have to meet greed, frustration, irritation, annoyance, impatience, jealousy, whatever the emotion might be. We're going to have to meet that. And if we can meet it with friendliness, we're being a lot kinder to ourselves, and we're going to be a lot more successful in navigating that moment wisely. Now, one of my best friends knows this story really well. And so she'll play monster with her kids, and she'll become the monster, and she'll be like, "Rawr," running around, screaming and chasing her kids as the monster. And one day while this was happening, the kids ran inside of their little playhouse and they hid, and they got really, really, really quiet. And then her son, who was only 3 years old at the time, stuck his head out of the playhouse and said, "Monster, would you like to come and have tea with us?" And this is such a powerful story. I get goosebumps every time I remember it and every time I tell it, because this is something that then we get to translate to our kids. That when something is big or scary, we don't have to necessarily run away from it, but we can invite those moments with friendliness and meet them with a greater level of kindness. So as we practice this inwardly in our journey, wherever we are on that path to parenthood, we then start to display those qualities outwardly, and we get to share that with our children. So the practice that we're going to do today is an acronym, and that makes it really easy to remember, so that when we're back out in our lives and things start to go a little bit haywire, we're going to remember this acronym and we're going to be able to put it into action right in the moment. So the acronym is RAIN, like rain coming down from the sky, R-A-I-N. And each letter of RAIN, we're going to spend a couple of minutes practicing what the letter stands for. And this is a practice for us to meet ourselves exactly where we're at in the moment. And I think it can be incredibly powerful, especially with all that's going on right now. We know that there's more on the shoulders of moms and women really than anyone at this moment in time, if you're still under stay-at-home orders, that there's really a lot being asked of us. And so this acronym RAIN is going to be a powerful tool for you to be able to take as soon as we're done with this practice and implement throughout the course of the rest of the week. So I hope some of that is helpful just as we begin and settle in. So if you haven't already, go ahead and find a comfortable seat for yourself. And that reminder that you can sit up, you can lie down, you find something that feels sustainable for you today. And I think especially for us as maybe expecting mothers or new mothers, we really need to be kind to ourselves in the way that we sit. I know for myself, as many of you now know, I'm a brand new mom. I have a 14-week-old daughter, turned 14 weeks today, and I'm sitting in a different way right now on a bed with pillows around me because I'm deserving of that kind of nourishment at this moment in time, and so are you. So really sit in a way that feels comfortable for you. And when you find that place for yourself, if it feels okay for you to close your eyes, go ahead and close your eyes. And you just let the environment around you be whatever that environment is. It doesn't need to be perfect. There's nothing right now that needs to be changed. You're just really, to the extent that you can, taking this time for yourself as an act of self-care And as you do that for yourself, you set this tone for your family and for your children that they too are worthy of that same self-care. And so as you find that position that feels comfortable for you today, and as you maybe close your eyes, take just several moments and begin to deepen your breath, taking just 4 or 5 fuller, deeper breaths. And it might even be the first time that you're aware of your breath today. And so letting the body fill up on the inhale, expanding out into the sides of the body and down into the belly. And as you exhale, sensing that you could get completely empty, and that in that emptiness, there's a letting go and a softening that starts to take place. And so just a few rounds of that fuller, deeper breath, emphasizing the breath in the body. And after a few rounds of that full, deep breath, letting the breath return just to its natural depth and duration. You can emphasize the breath every so often if it helps you to refocus, to come back into the present moment. But throughout the course of time that you sit, you don't need to change anything about the breath. It could be short and shallow. It could be long and deep. There's no one right way to breathe. And carrying through the practice from last week, this deep trust that your body knows how to be breathed. And so just knowing that as we enter into this practice together today, at any point in time and as often as you need to, you can bring your attention back to your breath, that point that we call an anchor of focus and concentration. Knowing that you're breathing in, knowing that you're breathing out, that your breath is always there for you to return to as often and as many times as you need to. And so just from this place, extending an invitation to call to mind something in your life right now that feels slightly challenging. So not the most challenging thing in your life right now. We're not going for the most challenging experience or person or situation. Just calling to mind a person, an experience, or a situation that right now in your life you're finding slightly challenging. And as you call that slight challenge to mind, take a moment as we enter into this acronym of RAIN. And knowing that your breath is there, that if at any point in time anything becomes too much, that you can always return back to the breath and only join back in when you feel ready again. As you call this slight challenge to mind, the R just simply stands for recognize. You're recognizing without any judgment, without any criticism, that challenge is present. And this is a natural part of life for everyone. No one's life is without challenge. And so for a moment, just simply to recognize what it is that you're aware of, that particular person, experience, or situation. And from that place, you sense that within the recognition, There's an undercurrent of breath that's always there supporting you as you ride those waves of recognizing what is here for you in this moment. And from that place of recognizing, we shift into the next letter, A, which is allow. And so now, from this place of recognizing that there might be a challenging experience, can you simply allow it to be there? And this might seem counterintuitive, that our usual reaction to something challenging or unpleasant is to try to make it go away, to try to fix it, especially as women and as mothers. So often that's what we're geared to do. But instead of jumping into the doing, can you just allow whatever it is that you're experiencing to be here? Nothing that you need to push away. Nothing that needs to be any different. The word meditation comes from the word sati, and that word actually means to see things as they really are. And so as you allow the emotion, the sensation, the experience to be there, you're simply seeing things as they really are. And inside of that allowance, you might even sense that there's a quality of freedom that starts to emerge, a quality of spaciousness. And as you allow that experience to be there, through it all, your breath is there supporting you. You might notice that as you allow the challenge to be there, that the breath changes. Maybe you notice for a moment the breath got a little tight or constricted. And you breathe again, feeling the inhale as it enters into your body, the places in your body that you notice your breath the most. And breathing out, you just simply notice the way that the body responds to the out-breath. And from this place, can you sense that by allowing whatever is here to be here today, without criticism, without judgment, that there's a quality of friendliness in that, a quality of kindness, that you are being inwardly friendly towards yourself? It's as if you're saying, even this belongs. And beginning to shift into this next part, the I of rain, which stands for investigate. And so investigating doesn't mean to get into the story of how you're angry at this person or how you're going to resolve the challenge. We're going to leave the narrative and the interpretation and the storytelling or the planning out of it. And instead, you're just investigating, what is it like when you're experiencing this slightly challenging moment? What is it like in your body? What do you notice? Do you notice tension in your jaw? Tightness in your heart or your chest? Or maybe down in your belly? The body is always happening in the present moment. And so this is by investigating how we come back into the present moment. And the power of investigating how the body is responding is that we feel our feelings first. The feelings are felt in the body. And so you might notice, do you get hot or do you get cold? When this challenge is present for you, are you able to stay connected with your body or do you get numb? That's also a feeling. That's also something to investigate, to be aware of, to take note of. And so again, just by investigating when this subtle challenge is present for you in your life, as you become aware of what's there for you at the feeling level of the body, there's also a friendliness. You're not trying to push those sensations or those feelings away. And if they're really big, and you can't be with it for very long, you titrate it. And what that means, it's kind of like dipping your toe in very hot water. You might be with the sensation or the feeling for a moment, then return to your breath. Take a couple of moments, be with your breath, and then only return to investigating what's there for you at the level of your body when you feel ready. That this is also part of how we bring a heart to the practice. We're never forcing ourselves to stay with something longer than it makes sense to. We're never causing pain or traumatizing ourselves. We're just touching in the same way that we might put a very kind hand on a child to soothe that child. And from that place of investigation, now we enter the last part of RAIN, this letter N. And N stands for nurture. So this part of you that's feeling challenged, what does it need most that you can provide? Not that someone else needs to provide for you. Do you need to soothe yourself with touch? You could put a hand on your heart. Do you need to say something kind and supportive to yourself? Like, it's okay. This too shall pass. Everyone experiences challenge. I'm not alone in this. And for this last part of practice, together for several moments in silence, can you rise up inside of yourself to nurture that part of you that is most asking to be held and attended to? Again, you might just simply sit with yourself kindly, free of judgment. You might offer a supportive or kind touch to yourself. Or you might internally and silently send yourself some supportive phrases like we practiced last Thursday. And taking these several moments to nurture, to be inwardly kind and compassionate. And just after several moments, returning your attention to your breath. Taking just a few now fuller, deeper breaths in the same way that you began your practice. And as you keep your eyes closed and you deepen your breath, you might just notice the subtle effects of your practice today. That sometimes the effects of practice are quite obvious, and sometimes the effects of practice are very subtle. They might not even be noticed until later on in our evening or the next day. And from this place, taking a moment to acknowledge yourself for showing up, for sitting down, and for doing your practice today. It is not easy to initiate self-care, especially in the role of mother. There is a lot on our plates, and so for you to have taken this time to initiate this self-care, you deserve a moment to really acknowledge yourself. And to know that as you do this work inwardly, you are supporting the future generation that you're raising. That we want to teach our children how to enact the same level of self-care. We would never want our children to withhold self-care from themselves. And so that means for us, we can't withhold it from ourselves. So taking this moment to give yourself a little bit of gratitude. And over time, and only as you're ready, starting to reopen the eyes, taking as much time as you need, knowing that there's no hurry and no rush. And as you reopen the eyes, I'd really like to encourage you to bring this practice with you out into the rest of your evening and out throughout the rest of your week. That in any moment you could be cooking dinner and notice that you're really in a hurry, that you're rushing. You could be in a moment with your children, finding yourself getting a little bit aggravated, or with your partner, and you can enact rain. You can take a moment, recognize what's there, allow it to be there, investigate what it's like in your body, and then nurture that part of yourself. Take care of yourself. Because it's from that place that we're going to be able to put in a little bit of space between the stimulus that's coming at us and our response. It's like that beautiful quote from Viktor Frankl, which reminds us that the space between the stimulus and response is really where our power lies, our power to respond in a way that's wise and in a way that's in alignment with our values. So I hope that this practice can be supportive for you, not just this evening, but moving forward throughout the rest of the day and the rest of the week. I'll be back again with you guys on Thursday, and Thursday evening, we're gonna do a very special practice. It's a practice called Yoga Nidra, and we do it lying down, and it's a form of deep relaxation. So you can lay down in your bed and put an eye mask on, and we're going to go through the whole body, and it's really a reset for the parasympathetic nervous system so that you can have some deep restorative healing and rejuvenation. If you have any questions, as always, feel free to pop them in the chat. I'll do my best to answer them. Or you can always reach out to me and send me a message. I'll do my best to get back to you. But it's a tremendous honor sharing these practices with you. They are the key to our self-care. So thank you for your time and your energy and your kind attention. I'll see you Thursday evening. Again, my name is Lauren Eckstrom, and I will practice with you Thursday. We'll do another 30-minute sit. Be sure to tune in for the rest of the week, all the fun yoga classes, the yoga for toddler classes, mommy and me classes, and this beautiful self-care series that Motherhood Maternity is doing. So important at this time. Thank you guys, and I will see you Thursday.